Welcome to Redzone In the Lab podcast. Today, Ken Souf, we've got a special guest, also Duran, that's going to be joining us. Today, we are going to close the files on the victory over the New England Patriots. We're gonna get into these fan overreactions these past couple of days, and there's a little drama coming from Chase that we're gonna also discuss, and then we're gonna kind of take a peek into the Seattle Seahawks and that matchup that we have this coming Sunday. Buckle up. We are in the lab. Let's get it. Looking good, Ken. You looking good. How you doing today, Ken?
Doing good. Feeling a little mischievous.
Uh-oh.
But I'll behave. I'll behave. Man, we're back to standard time, no longer on daylight savings time. It's starting to get a little bit low in the sky here with that sun. It's going to be dark shortly.
Yeah, it's dark here now, so no more the light. But at least the light is a little better. Yeah, the darker it is outside, because I don't have room darker than shade. So, yeah, we're definitely going to get into some football. On the other side of this, me and Ken is going to talk about some overreactions. And if you're wondering, if you follow me on Twitter, you might have come across that court case when I was supposed to follow someone back, and I am not going to do it.
Shout out Redzone In the Lab podcast.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's Benjamin St. Jude's, DB for the Washington Commanders. I want to give a big shout out to Redzone In the Lab podcast.
Welcome back to Redzone In the Lab podcast. I am Deuce. There is Ken. Well, yeah, there. Hold on. There is Ken, and we're going to have Souf that's going to be joining us soon. And we also got our special guest, Duran, who we're going to bring up in a few minutes. So, Yam on the other side. Appreciate you for joining us as always. That's right, That's right, Cody. I am innocent. Chase was good, and DST. What's DST? Daylight Savings Time. Got it. What's up, Jeffrey? How you doing, Ken? All right, let's get right into the overreactions. Fan overreactions. What are some fan overreactions today, Ken?
I don't think there were really any big overreactions from the game. Maybe just some minor ones here and there. I think the one that kind of intrigues me has been kind of carrying on for a few days, and I think it's just really minor. And there's a growing number of people that want to anoint Sam Howell as a franchise quarterback, the savior of the franchise, et cetera, et cetera. I think he's a very good quarterback, but I still think he's developing. I think he will take the rest of the year to get better. And I think there will also be some room for improvement next year. So I would kind of slow the brakes just a little bit. I do think he'll be here for a very long time. I think he'll be a very, very good quarterback. But let's just, be a little more patient because, we got some very tough teams coming up after Seattle. And they're just not going to be easy games. And they're going to be putting pressure on him. So, yeah, we might see another bad game or two, maybe even 3 or 4. But we're going to have to be patient with this young man. But he is the future.
Yeah, for me, some overreactions this week is the D-line looked much better. That's an overreaction. We really didn't need Chase and Sweat. I think that's an overreaction. What are some other fan overreactions from this week? Those were 2 of mine. What you got?
Well, There was one play that was called a cross dog, and um, on one you have a crossing pattern with the linebackers. David Mayo went right to his spot to try to fill a gap, and he did. The other side, Jamin Davis was supposed to fill that gap, and he didn't. He immediately let the center engage him, and it wasn't a good play. He didn't move quick enough, and it allowed New England running back Ramondre Stevenson to run for a 70-yard gain. Now, cross dog, any kind of defense is called dog. That's a blitz. So that was going to be a blitz, but at the very least, Jamin Davis needed to be there to fill that gap or rushing the quarterback if it was going to be a pass. And he had a pretty good clear lane. And while maybe he wouldn't have stopped Stevenson, he at least could have slowed the progress, and that way this anyone defensive backfield would have limited that play somewhat. So he wasn't there. A couple minutes later, he's on the sideline, and TV cameras were panning into them, and Jack Del Rio had a tablet with him showing him the play and what went wrong, and like you can't argue with the video kid. So I don't think it's an overreaction, but yeah, it was one play that cost the team a touchdown. He needed to fill that gap better. But overall, Jamin Davis has had a great year compared to recent years, and he continues to improve. So we have to expect a mistake once in a while.
Yeah, Chase says overreactions Quan Martin, the best safety on the team. Yeah, that's too much. He seemed to be in the play. I mean, he didn't blitz well when he did send him. He was kind of like out of the play. Him and Percy. It looks like these free safeties just all look the same. Even Defoe. It's just like watching Defoe back there. They just seem slow to the ball. They all have some good speed, especially Defoe and Percy, but they just seem like they're always getting to the ball late. And of course, Quan, another deflection interception, right? The one in the preseason. The wide receiver kind of bobbled it, falling out of bounds, deflected to him. And this one, Kendall Fuller, which really should be getting all the credit because that was a great breakup from him, and the ball flipped right to Quan Martins, but he caught it, so that's great. Yam says all the people giving the O-line a pass for one decent game. I need to see more. Also not saying Sam 100% a franchise carrying quarterback, but he is good enough. We don't have to draft a quarterback. And the better he plays, the more we're going to have this conversation about Sam Howell, as long as he continues to play. Well, for me, I'm already there. Like I was there right after the Eagles game. This is my QB1 for 2024. But if Hall comes in and say they want to do something differently, of course I'm cool. I'm not going to fight about it. Yes, Kim, that's who it is. Sam Howell. All right, before we bring Deron up, I do want to kind of go over that game a little bit, Ken. What were some pluses from that game and what were some minuses, offense and defense?
On offense, the plus is the most obvious, Sam Howell. That's now back-to-back 300-yard games. And now he is the number 2 passing yardage leader in the league. And 9 weeks ago, if you would have said he will be top 10 guaranteed, we would have been happy. But he's number 2 overall and very close to number 1. So I think we have to be really thrilled with that. But again, I think as a cautionary tale, we do have some tough games coming up. Antonio Gibson, what a really good game he had all around. So good rushes, timely catches, turned into, substantial gains. But he also had some good kickoff returns. One of them was for 37 yards. And, there's plays like that really make a difference when you can give your team really good field position. That's half the battle toward, driving toward a score. So If I had to give out, great grades for this game, just to individual players, Antonio Gibson would be up there. As far as a negative on the offense, tight ends. I want to see more. I want to see more production. I want to see better blocking. Their blocking scores, the PFF ratings for the tight ends this week were in the mid 50s. And that's a little bit below average. It needs to be better. And I watched them a few times, and yeah, a little bit. There were some difficulties there. So we need to see more. Now I know that John Bates was open on an easy touchdown, and the ball didn't get to him. And there was one play where Logan Thomas was held in the end zone, pretty obvious, and it wasn't called. But still, they need to be more involved in this offense. So if I had to put a negative on the offense, that would be it. Defense, I'll start with a negative. The defensive line, uh, they weren't really overly bad, but they weren't really that great. It was obvious they were missing their two bookend defensive ends that were traded last week. I think over time they'll adjust to that. I will say, I hate to bring up referees in any contest. I rarely do that. But, the sack that KJ Henry had, I really do believe that was a very poor call. And the reason is not just because, how he kind of rolled off of Mac Jones, but when Mac Jones went to the ground, he was holding himself up with the forearms on the ground. His chest and stomach never hit the ground, and his knees were also holding him up. And none of those limbs were injured at all. So KJ Henry did not come down full force on the quarterback. That was a very bad call, and it's been universally um, uh, really advertised as such across the league. But a plus for the defense would be the cornerbacks. They played just a great game. Uh, they limited New England's wide receivers. Granted, their wide receivers generally don't scare anybody, but still they did the job. And Emmanuel Forbes, what a great bounce back game for him. His best game of the season, and we hope it continues. I'm not hearing you.
You call that a C. Henry moment. The thing about the tight ends that I kind of is the distribution of the football. Sam Howell hit 9 different receivers on Sunday. They all had 2 or more targets, and I believe Logan had 5 targets, 4 or 5 targets, something like that. And it's everyone had 2 or more. A few people had 4. I think one had a couple people had 5. One had 6, and then Terry and Jahan had 7 and 8, respectively. So if he's distributing the ball around, and the tight ends might not be the receivers of that game to get the higher amount of targets. So I'm not surprised that one game you may see Logan Thomas get 7, 8 targets, and one game he might get 3 or 4 targets. But it's not like those targets are not happening, right? So they are going to someone. And that's the thing about Sam Howell and his progression right now, is that he is going through his progressions and he's throwing it to the person that's open. We're going to talk more about Sam Howell when Deron comes up, but I do get the point. As long as Logan is there when he need him to be there, Logan doesn't get great separation, but he gets enough separation for Sam to be able to, for him to have a big in a target, and for John Bates. He was getting pressure up the middle. If he would have had a split second longer, that was an easy touchdown for sure. Yam says kind of wild to think about our draft picks under Ron and company have panned out. Can we call it roughly 20% hit rate? We're going to do that one day. We've done it a few times in spaces, but we're definitely going to go through and look at these last few these drafts Ron had and see what type of hit rate it is. Not saying other guys we can't be good, but they are underutilized, especially compared to where they were picked or were passed over. Yep. That was a terrible call. And you mentioned his elbows, Ken, but also his knees.
Yeah, I said that.
His knee, yeah, he did. Yeah, his knees was down before the quarterback went down too.
Yeah.
That was a real bad call. Real bad call. What's up? Juan is in the building. Yes, everyone hit that thumbs up. Thank you, Kim. Let's get that algorithm moving. But yeah, Ken, let's so from that game, let's kind of close that game out. What did you see from that game that you wasn't expecting to see? And flip it around. What were you expecting to see and didn't see?
I expected to see Sam Howell have a little bit of a regression from the Eagles game. In the Eagles game, he had 397 yards passing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was in a losing effort. And yeah, he had less games. And I figured he would still have a decent game, but closer to maybe 275 yards, maybe, or, maybe a bit more. But I really wasn't looking for a 300-yard game. I was actually looking for Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson to get more touches against that defense, because I felt like they were going to be pretty active and would be more in Sam Howell's face. But that happened to a certain degree. But Sam Howell really went through his progressions extremely well. And like you said, and was getting the ball out quickly. And of course, that one pass across the field, that scared me. I think it scared everybody. But my goodness, the strength of that arm to get it there accurately and on target. And Byron Pringle's wide open. And then he rumbles for another 20 yards. That was an amazing play. And Sam Howell's been making these plays. And, I'll say this. When it was 3rd and 23, late in the first half, I was thinking at least get the ball down a little ways and then punt it, pin them deep. Yeah, they have about a minute and a half to go for New England to drive down the field. They still had plenty of time. So I was worried about that. But when he picked up the first down, yeah, he threw a bad pass a little later on for interception, and we could have scored. But at the very least, it prevented New England from going down the field and scoring before the half ended. So that 24-yard run, that was amazing. 3rd and 23, and you get a first down. Now, as far as any so-called negatives that you want to talk about, I really can't think, this team, we could focus on a few things, but overall, they played as a unit for once this season. They just, it seems like it's been one or the other this year. The offense plays good, but the defense doesn't, or vice versa. Well, both the offense and defense did enough to win that game. But if I did have a negative from it, the score was 20-17. It was a close game that New England could have won. New England is a 2-7 team. That's who we beat. We're barely better than a 2-7 team. So now when we get in the tougher part of the schedule, I want to see if we can beat 7-2 teams, or teams with winning records, teams that are currently in the playoff hunt. Coming up is Seattle. So I want to see them improve week to week. And this game coming up is a great test.
Souf, speaking of strength, Souf is in the building.
How's it going?
Ken got his cool glasses on. He didn't tell us we were wearing shades today.
So I can go grab some.
Ken wants to be the cool guy today.
Oh
But
well, we
look,
can have it today.
So,
you two are the two cool young guys. I'm the old guy, and I need everything I can get, man.
Hey, cool. Hey Ken, you're cool in my book. Okay, so whatever that means to you.
So, Ken, before we bring Deron, we're gonna talk about some Sam Howell. The people want to know what's your fan overreactions this week.
Is that Souf?
Yeah,
For
what I
me?
say? Yeah.
Ken.
My
Fan
bad.
overreactions for Sam Howell.
For the team, the fans, overall, what are the
Oh,
biggest overreactions this week?
overreaction. Sam Sam is an MVP candidate, I guess.
Come on, man.
Overreactions for this game for this week. I mean, at this point, I don't know because of the team is what they are now. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
I hear Ken saying that we barely beat a 2-17 or 2-17, but like I can't get with that, Ken, because we barely lost to the Eagles twice, who are what are they 8-1? So are we more are we almost 8-1 or are we almost 2-7? So I think we're closer to the top end than that bottom end, but it's just hard to say because the team is just so inconsistent. The defense will continuously let us down, and I don't know if they're ever gonna make any adjustments. Oh wow, hey, what's up, buddy, old pal? I don't know if I mean, we're on social media, so like we see what people say, and they're like, "Oh well, Jack's gonna do this, Jack's gonna do that." Jack's not doing nothing. Okay,
He's
guys.
not changing anything.
Jack's not doing
He's not
anything.
changing anything.
You guys think he's gonna draw up exotic blitzes to get pressure? He's not. Okay, so I don't know why people are still saying that. But yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, man. So that's something to talk about. We're going to take this last 15 to 18 minutes, and we're going to talk about Kim's MVP candidate, Sam Howell. Deron, welcome to the show. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well. How everybody's doing today?
We doing good. We doing good. We doing good.
So
like you got
Mr.
water
Sam
in the
Howell.
background. You in the pool? A
That sound like I got
waterfall?
water? Nah, I'm in my office.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's better.
Okay.
There's a little echo. Kim says, "Hey, Deron."
What's up, Kim?
So look, Deron, how far? Like, where's Sam Howell in your MVP votes? Top 10, top 5,
he's not in my MVP votes. I've loved what the young man's done so far, but I think the Ashburn syndrome is kicking into effect with the talk of him being an MVP. Look, he's done a lot more than what people expected of him. The progression of where he's gotten to from where he started at last offseason is amazing, but he is not an MVP candidate. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Not yet, but he's putting up numbers. That's something you're not going to be able to doubt. And if he stays on this pace and he kind of increases his touchdowns as his turnovers decreases, he's going to be in those graphs. He's going to be in those graphics. And the only thing that you're going to need is his team to be hovering around 500 maybe to actually get those type of considerations, but it's still early. But I think for us, when we talk about Ashburn syndrome, and Ken, I know you've heard that term tons of times, Ashburn syndrome. It could be a negative or a positive, Deron. Like we can say, like we say, hey man, Sam Howell is number 10 in the MVP race. People say, oh, you got Ashburn syndrome, you know. And then on the opposite side, it could be like you got that PTSD Ashburn syndrome. So you're you're not going to put yourself out there to say, hey, look, he's top 10 in my book. I mean, how you look at it from both sides?
Well, I can understand the excitement for everyone who wants to anoint him as this top 10 quarterback statistically, but you got to look at statistics with content. Some of these numbers, he's putting up really is not affecting the outcome of the game. It's still, in a sense, sometimes a team sport, and his play, though good, is not correlating to wins. So I still think he has some things he needs to clean up. Getting rid of the ball. He's not taking the sacks as much in the last couple of games, but the hits still, the cumulative effect of them can shorten the career season. We've seen it with some of these quarterbacks. So he just has to, get better at protecting himself. And then though he still has the propensity to do those kind of, why did he make that throw like he did at the end of the first half of that game up in New England. So going into Seattle, which is probably one of the toughest places to play in the NFL, with that crowd noise and against that defense who feeds off of that crowd noise, if he can continue his progression, then we can start to have those type of conversations about where Sam is. But right now, you can say the same thing about C.J. Stroud, who's essentially, both of them are essentially rookie quarterbacks. Stroud has 9 games played and Sam has 10. So he's still progressing. He's young. Let's not, go too fast.
What's up, Coach? It's been a long time. Kirk Cousins, for sure. Hence why he should be MVP plus the numbers for a first-year starter. That's right, Kim. Haha, maybe he needs to play middle linebacker too so he can impact the game. That's a shot at Duran. That's not all on him. Why was she? Yeah, man. Out of, let's say, we could count 5 drops that probably equal like 100 and some yards, maybe even more. So let's go to Souf. When you think about him, like Duran mentioned, he only played 10 games, right? And you think he's still developing. Second year in the league. First year was pretty much all classroom. This year he's actually been on the field. When you look at his progressions, and like Duran said, he's exceeded expectations. When you look at him and where he is, like EB has really thrown him into the fire, like in deep water, like no vests, no goggles, threw him in the deep water. Do you see more of like is it when you look at him where he is, has he far exceeded more expectations, or is he slower learning in other situations? Like, how far do you see him as a young player?
I think he's doing pretty damn good. I mean, I don't know if I speak for you guys, but I think if you take him off of the Commanders and we put in whatever quarterback like name you want, like Jacoby or whoever, we're not winning half of these games that we've won. We're not. You put in whoever else, one of these other like backup quarterbacks, we're not winning these games. So I think as far as like expectations, like for me, when I watch the game, I'm thinking, okay, for the most part, I'm not going to have to worry about Sam Howell putting up points because they're going to do that. I'm worried about the other side of the ball more so than I am, oh man, Sam is going to. Now I'm really nervous because it used to be we used to sit back at home. Even last year, we're like, man, we're only going to score 14 points today, or so as soon as the other team scored like 17, we're like, well, this is going to be an L. We're not going to score 21, so this is a loss. But this year, we're like, all right, defense giving up 17, we might score 21, we might score 25, but so. I think he's far exceeded expectations for most of us. I know people have a super high bar for whatever reason, but he's learning. And as far as the MVP thing goes, I think by definition, he should be talked about because if you take him off the team is terrible. Like there's not a good group. You're not winning many games without him in there. So
Yeah,
by
if we can find
definition, he
that, if we
should
can
be
find
kind of
that definition somewhere for sure. Like
yeah.
wherever that definition, that
Hey,
true definition is, we will never
I mean
know.
the same thing. You say the same thing about like all the other like top tier quarterbacks. If you take them off of
Yeah, that's
the
true.
team, and then
Will they be
their
as
team's
successful?
not going to win as they're not going to be as good. So yes, Kim, I'm going to give you a little bit, maybe about 5%, but
Oh,
for
that's
the
real
most part, he
low. I
should.
thought you was about to say 25, 30. He said 5.
No,
So
5.
so
I mean,
5.
that's fair.
yeah.
Isn't it?
So
Yeah, it's fair.
so Ken, you studied a lot of quarterbacks, especially for this team. Like we've needed quarterbacks for years, and your focus is about the team. Did you expect for Sam Howell to be where he is today?
No. Now, if he had been drafted by this team a year earlier, I think he would have been a first rounder because that year he had was phenomenal. And he should have come out at that time, but he didn't. And for whatever reason, he falls to the 5th round. He doesn't play his first year here except for the final game. But if you look at that Dallas game, he had like 170 yards passing. So it's not like we blew out. Well, it's not like he was the reason we blew out the Cowboys that day. It was the defense that was on fire. And there were some good plays on offense, and we were able to get a very comfortable victory. So in the offseason, I was expecting him to be the starter, but I was expecting, basically 220, 240, 260-yard games. And maybe halfway or a little bit halfway through the season, we might see a 300-yard game. And then maybe he closes out pretty well. And the reason I thought that at that point was Eric Bieniemy's in town. And he's definitely going to improve being in that offense. But I didn't expect what we've seen of late and really throughout the season. Yes, we can talk about the Buffalo game. We can talk about the Giants game. And we can talk about, some of the mistakes he's made, holding the ball too long. But guess what? I think a lot of us expected at least some of these things. So it's not overly surprising. But to have, to be amongst the league leaders in passing yardage, second overall, I didn't expect that after nine games, but it's a pleasant surprise. So I think I'm upping his expectations, I guess, that I have of him. And I'm not going to crown him a franchise quarterback yet. I'm not going to crown him the MVP. But I will say this. I do believe that he has an honest chance to be a Pro Bowl alternate this year. I do believe he has that chance. That's where he is right now. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's definitely. Chef from the kitchen was good. Williams, might be your first time commenting at least. We definitely appreciate you. 24 class is supposed to be really good. Yep, we're gonna get Deron talk about that. We better not put forwards on DK. We will, defense shutouts for sure. 5th round. Glenn is in the build. The midi said Funk Master Flex is in the building.
5%.
So yeah, Deron, and I'm sorry everyone, we are running a little behind, and we gotta cut it a little short. We're definitely gonna have Deron on again, but where are you with Sam Howell, and what does he have to do for you to be labeled QB1 for 2024?
Consistency and his growth. I think one of the things that they talked about with him was his ability not to repeat mistakes, to learn and grow. And we watched in each game as he's progressively got better from previous games. Now the test is going to come along. I think a real big, important pivot point in this career for me is playing the Giants again. You get a chance at another team to see that defense again, who kind of played you, made you look kind of pedestrian. Your opportunity to go against that defense and see what you learned from playing them, because it's not really too much more that Wink can do with those players, and they've actually gotten weaker since we played them to make Sam look as bad as he did in that game, which I didn't think he looked as bad as he could. It was some drops and maybe some protection issues with that. But playing the Giants again, going on the road in Seattle, and continuing his kind of progression leads me to believe like we can build around him. You look at some of these quarterbacks who were taken in the first round recently, and they've had their struggles, and they're not even where Sam is. Like, we just played one, Mac Jones. They talked about the 49ers trading all the way up to second pick to trade for him. Now, looking at them playing, do you really think that would have been advantageous for them? They even moved him from the guy that they did draft in the first round. So Sam Howell is progressing at a very good pace. I think we can build around him. Yes, it's going to be a really hot quarterback draft, but we would be basically going back to point one, which we're already could be at point two with building around Sam.
When it comes to the 2022 class, where does Sam fit for you from that class? I know it's been 1-2 years, just a second year, but where does he fit?
I thought he was the number one quarterback coming out when he came out that draft, just based on his college career. And from being a true freshman to go to the ACC and do the things that he did, especially against at that point, Clemson was still a powerhouse team. And for him to play well against some of those teams, I thought he was the number one quarterback in that draft. You look at Kenny Pickett, he was a one-hit wonder. Matt Corral, also one hit. Liberty wasn't a really big school, so I didn't understand that. Even Brock Purdy, he's in a good situation, great team around him, defense to complement him. So Sam has less to work with as far as the talent, and he's played better. So he's the number one out of that draft for me.
All right, so from the hype, from what we've seen so far, from the 2024 class quarterbacks, where do you put him? Like, if it comes to a situation where we're between 10 and 12 and we can move up to get, I think there are three bona fide day one starting quarterbacks coming out. I think you have another 2 or 3 that can possibly be day one starters that will also be drafted in the first. I think we can have up to 6 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. At what point do you not move up? Where do you put Sam Howell into this list of quarterbacks coming out?
Well, the goal is to, if you're going to be drafting a quarterback in the draft and you want the elite of elite guys, of course, you start with Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr., and Drake May. If you're not in position to get either one of those 3, Sam Howell is better than the second tier, or he's right on par with the second tier. Plus, he has NFL experience. So that is already getting him a leg up on those guys, even the guys that may have a higher ceiling talent-wise, but it all depends on the circumstances of where you get drafted, because we've seen guys light it up in college, get drafted to a very poor franchise, and it kind of ruins them.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with those 3 quarterbacks. And I know, like our guy Slim would say, if he wins enough games to play you out of that mix of those top 3 guys, you definitely stick with him. And there are a couple quarterbacks. They still have to fill themselves out for the 2025 draft. There are a few, but it's still up in the air. Of course, things changes from year to year, injuries, and all of those things. But before we let you go, and before we end, when you look at the tandem between Eric Bieniemy and Sam Howell, is it important, regardless of what happens this season, is it important for you to keep them 2 together, or do you believe Sam Howell can perform under another offense?
I wouldn't necessarily go. I mean, Eric Bieniemy and Sam Howell, their ability to grow together, of course, is what you want as an organization, to have their continuity. But at the same time, if the new ownership decide Eric isn't that guy, I hope that they kind of get someone who's a West Coast based offense, so he can kind of continue at least that continuity with a similar system. Maybe terminology, maybe a little bit, the concepts and everything are the same. So it's not that huge learning curve because it'll be 3 offenses in 3 years for him. And you don't want to start to do that to young quarterbacks. That really starts to kind of mess them up.
Yep. And look, again, I am sorry. Deron definitely going to come back. We started a little late, but we definitely have more questions to ask. We're probably going to have him back next week. So hopefully it'll be a victory also on next week. So again, appreciate let's go through score predictions real quick, starting with Souf, Ken, and then Deron.
Oh boy. I think it's gonna be rainy in Seattle on Sunday. Therefore, 23-20 good guys.
I like it. What you got, Ken?
Half my family lives in the Seattle-Tacoma region, and I would love nothing more to see Washington win and just silence all of them. But I'm fearful, and I'm going to go with the prediction that I had posted at Hog Saving today, Seattle 29-27.
Who you got, Deron?
I think this is a winnable game for us. Yeah, they are terrible. Ooh, Lord, let's
watching the Wizards.
So I think that the Commanders actually can pull this game out. I think it's not going to be an explosive, high-scoring game. I think both teams kind of bend, don't break in the red zone, but I do think we're able to get a couple more touchdowns. So I'm going to go with the score prediction of 17-13 Washington Commanders.
I like it. Y'all know y'all can get mine tomorrow. So remember, do it because you love it, not because it loves you. One beat, one sound.